Recording in progress.
Aaron. Good afternoon and welcome to today's work session. Today is July the 10th, Monday, July the 10th, 2023. We're starting a couple of minutes late. The time is 3:04 p.m. The work session of the City Council of the City of Trinidad will now come to order. We have 2 items to discuss today, 6 items to be exact. Item 1 is Parks and Recreation Advisory Board Master Plan presentation. Item 2, Lodging Tax Advisory Board request. Item 3, Rules of Decorum for Council. Item 4, Board Liaisons, Council roles, City Boards, and Department appointees. Item 5, Discussion of potential ballot measures. And item 6, Community beautification. So let's go ahead and get started with the first item, which is the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board Master Plan presentation. So,
Jen, do you have a jump driver? Is it just on there?
I was told you would all have copies of the.
Oh, okay. Let me, did you send those to Donna? Or, I'm sorry,
Audra.
Audra.
Oh, it's on the drive.
Oh, it's in the drive,
Be
okay.
on the drive, because I didn't
Oh,
bring my
well,
drive.
you can pull that up here then.
Shoot.
No, we got you.
Okay.
Give us 1 second.
And then Desiree was making a couple of copies
Perfect.
for
Pull it
me
up
that
on
I
the
wanted to
picture.
get in your hands. I don't know what happened. Here comes Dawn with them. Thank you. I wanted to get this out in front of you all. Handy note catcher.
Thank you very
And
much.
a copy of kind of the highlight 5-year plan table that we created. Keep one for myself.
Thank you.
All right. So, council members, thank you for your time this afternoon, as always. We've met before. So I understand from Audra that we'll try to get this in under half an hour. I'm sure you'll be happy to move on to your other items. But I just wanted to go through 3 things today. In presenting this to you for your approval, I believe that's the process that we're looking at for today. I'd like to go over our process of how we got this document in front of you, some highlights of the plan, and then next steps. Have you all been able to open the document?
yes.
Awesome. All right, then, a little background. When I came in to take over the chair of the Parks and Rec Board, this renewal of the master plan was coming up. So it's kind of been my baby since I jumped in, and just want to share with you that it was an enormous task.
Yeah, I can see that.
So our 2016 plan that we are replacing and borrowed a lot from was prepared with assistance, outside assistance. I believe it was an intern that was working for the city at the time. That was a 63-page document in final. I am still to this day unsure of how it was ever referenced or utilized. So in preparing this new 5-year update, we did come to you for a request for funding to assist in getting that written, and that was denied, and we went through a reasonable process to determine that those funds were not available. So the board took it upon ourselves, and we have several of our board members here, to just get her done. And so what we have produced in our work from the spring, really the beginning of 2022 to March, when we completed it and submitted it to the city, is the product of multiple board meetings, 2 work sessions, and I did not count the hours of the amount of time that I put into pulling it all together. And so that brings us to what we have here today. And it is a shorter document, and it is intended as a strategic plan. The term master plan has connotations that can be overwhelming. I like to think of this, we do, as a blueprint. A blueprint moving forward, especially since there's no other blueprint for Parks and Recreation in the city of Trinidad. All right, so some plan highlights. Let's do walk through it, and I've made some notes, and I'll just draw your attention to scroll down to some pages. There's a colorful title page now with a beautiful picture of our city. And as I mentioned, it is a shorter document, hopefully more succinct and actionable. My first note to council is in the preface on page 2. This interim plan, and I was calling it interim because I do believe that it should sort of function that way. This interim plan provides general information about current facilities, recommendations for maintenance and expansion, and serves as a placeholder for a more comprehensive master plan and funding. So I would like you to keep that in your minds as we go through this, that we don't feel qualified to create a document that deserves the attention of the city of Trinidad. A professionally crafted document with some additional pieces would really be a good match for a city that's proposing to be an outdoor rec destination and to move outdoor tourism to be a real economic driver for town. If you scroll to page 5, we did enhance and create a section for stakeholders of the master plan because we really want to recognize that this plan is, I guess, a representative document of what the Parks and Rec Advisory Board stands for. And our function, as I've come to understand it, is to serve as a liaison between the citizens of Trinidad and the city. We're an advisory board of volunteers. So we did want to bring into focus the fact that there are so many stakeholders involved in this process, and the last one is the community itself of Trinidad. Going on to my third note that I wanted to bring to you, and this is really the highlight of the report of the plan, is starting on page 7 with goals and objectives. A lot of the language in this version was lifted out of the 2015-2016 version. But what this chart represents, and I got it onto one page for you all, is this is what the Parks and Rec Advisory Board uses as our compass for all of our actions and what we're prioritizing as a board over the next, we hope that it holds water for 5 years. And for some reason, it didn't graphically capture in this Google Doc, so it doesn't look quite as pretty in the Google Doc, but you have a hard copy here. We divided it up into goals and objectives with action steps, which we feel are really important to anchor our purpose. A little bit of an idea about budget, and then a time frame to complete either current and ongoing or 6 months to a year to 3, or 3 to 5 years out. Our first goal is to maintain, improve, and enhance existing assets and programming to sustain an exceptional level of service currently provided. A lot of this language is borrowed from the multiple other towns the size of Trinidad with similar demographic that have master plans. So I lifted a lot of language that I saw in those documents and to help me with this. And I think that pretty much states clearly that one of our main goals is maintenance and improvement upon our existing assets. 3 objectives there. Maintaining current infrastructure, create some new amenities and expand recreational programming, actual programs, especially for youth. So youth plays a big role in our meetings and our gatherings. We know that that's important to everybody, and we feel like we are really in a poised at a good moment to generate some more enthusiasm and responsiveness and better communication with citizens about programs available not only for little kids, but those kids that we hope want to stay here in Trinidad, middle to high school and early college. Our second goal is to consider current trends and public input to address demand for recreational amenities and programs. And here is one of the pieces that we would have liked to have completed before we wrote the plan, and that is to conduct a public survey. And I think it's important that this survey is provides adequately responsive, in other words, representative of our community, valid and reliable data. There's no sense sending out another 10-question questionnaire in the mail, and we get 100 responses, and we build all of our actions off of that document. That's not best practice. So that's something that we feel would serve the purpose of executing the goals of this plan, but also being responsive to the community and giving them a really good way of telling us what they want and need.
Well, you know, what's interesting, I was looking at these, and there are some things that are actually ongoing already. For instance, the ice rink that you have in here, that the new hotel is going to have an ice rink. You know, and then the other thing is going to be the new property that we just purchased. We just gave, just the other day, that 288 acres, or 280 acres that we just purchased. So that's going to be part of it.
And where is that?
That's next to the Trinidad Lake State Park.
Yeah.
So,
The Moulters? No.
No.
Former Moulters? No.
no, this is right next to Highway 12.
Great. I've heard from Jared about
So
that.
let's talk to Jared about it.
That thought I'm going to address in my third section here, because that's great news, and we want to act on it appropriately. Notes. Okay, so goal 3, develop recreational connectivity between city assets and amenities, including trail networks. Looking at the Wormhole, Trailhead, Old Sopris, Trinidad Community Center, etc. Connectivity amongst assets of our town, I think, is a really great place to invest. And then goal 4, increase public access to use of existing and future recreation sites and programming. That could, traditionally include signage, but we are really ready, and I think the population is ready for a better electronic footprint for people to engage with programming in the city. Right now, Marty has to run around with checks in his pocket, handwritten like slips of paper that are torn off. So I think we could step up there too. So that is a big piece, and that's why I wanted to run that off for you all to have in front of you. My next note is on page 11. Again, a reminder in bold print. Pending funding, a thorough update of level of service calculations should be completed by a qualified statistician or other professional consultant in order to provide accurate demographic and other projections to guide future planning and expenditures. I don't know if you're all familiar with level of service. I learned about it in being in this position, but it's a way of measuring whether the amount of acreage that we have of this type of park matches a state standard or a DOLA standard. And so the old report showed us in great deficit, and that whole plan said we need to build 7 more soccer fields in order to become up to speed with the level of service. We're obviously not going to do that, but these kind of data pieces and points are standard for a master plan. So that needs work. We didn't try to do that. I'm not a statistician. Next note, went the wrong way, was, again, just another reminder on page 19, 2.7, meeting future needs, that we really recommend that the city fund a professional entity to complete a statistically valid and reliable survey. The final piece that I want to highlight is the last section, starts on page 28. This is a copy of the old existing facilities, the table 6.1 parks facility inventory. Pardon the graphic, you can't read all of the titles across the top. I tried to figure out how to turn that around, but this is what we inherited. I believe that we do need an inventory of our parks and rec facilities. They're out there. I'm not sure we all even know what we have. And it's, you know, it makes all the common sense in the world to want to know what you have in order to take care of it. So this is a long section. We did insert photographs and did a little bit of footwork out there in the community looking at these mini parks, neighborhood parks, community parks, all the way up to the facilities that are leased out, including Monument Lake and the municipal golf course. So, any questions popping up for you all, or?
See if you have any questions from
Or-
council?
Jen, I had one. You and Jared spoke, and I know that's in your objective, the $140,000 allocation from the third quarter marijuana funds, about the repair of the Trinidad High School tennis courts with the installation of the pickleball, the problematic surface area, underground well.
Yeah,
Have you,
yeah, that's all just like stuck
yeah,
right now.
it's on hold.
And, you know, I think the best way to answer that is to get this in front of you. And then there's one more thing the Parks and Rec is working on about not actually how to pick one more straw out of the bale, but to look at how we function as a city to get things prioritized, funded, and done. Because it feels like there's a lot of, oh, that's working, oh, no, that's not working anymore. We know what happened to the swimming pool update. You know, it's just, it's an old story. So I'll get to that, but just know that Jared is working on it, as well as one of our board members is sort of taking that on personally as his baby. And the city does continue to look at different options for pickleball court that are the wisest expenditure, you know, and the best utilization of resources that we have. Is there anything else that?
Questions? Any other questions?
No, I don't have anything.
Then I just, oh, I'm sorry.
I got a couple of things. First of all, I want to say thank you for this incredible amount of work, and I appreciate your professionalism in advising us about what we need to do from this point on. That's very helpful for us to know, and I'm sitting here kind of thinking, wow, this is an enormous job, and you all have done an admirable job with it. That is clear. And I'd like to know some more about where we should go with this forward to some kind of what you recommend about a professional agency that might help us. Because I think you're right in terms of when we're doing our strategic plan, this is going to necessarily need to be part of that, and it should all be coordinated and make sense. And so I appreciate all that you've done. I noticed the ballpark, it just is just a small thing. The ballpark is now leased to the college and the high school, is that correct? The Central Park ballpark, the stadium?
I can't answer that question.
Okay, that's what it says.
Yeah,
I was wondering.
I mean, when you get down to it, you know, having somebody who holds all that information and, you know, it's stored in one place where we can all access it.
Yeah.
because the way that I find out that information is I ask Naaman and then he asks me, and then we ask next to Jared, and like, so, yeah,
Because in terms of goal for increasing public access to use and existing future recreation sites and programming, I want to see something in here or in our strategic plan that talks about the ADA issues with the ballpark and where we're going with that, whether it's the responsibility of the city or the college or the high school, or who's doing this? Because I'm not finding an answer
That
in
would probably be
here.
our responsibility, yeah, because we talked a little bit about that.
Yeah.
It's our responsibility.
I know that Bob Just I've spoken with him about, indirectly about some of the vaccines work around ADA at the ballpark, but I don't stay up to date on the latest decisions. I know there's a ADA accessible swing being installed there, so.
That is great.
And then your first comment I would like to get to in just the last minutes that I have here for
Sure.
next steps.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so overall, this plan, I ask myself, we as a board ask ourselves, and you might be asking yourselves, what is the function of this document? If you open it up and look at it and read, like, how does it work? So our next steps are to help address that, and I will let you know that at our next board meeting, we will be taking this up with a little bit more focus and drafting a formal statement and request to council about how to move forward. But generally, let me just back up and say next steps are to organize and fund a thorough community survey. Some things, I don't even know how the community knows that we have Parks and Rec Advisory Board meetings unless they get online, so we could do a better job about getting community input.
When you prepare that next document to bring to us, if you could narrow it down, I know you got 44 pages here,
Yeah,
but if you could narrow that down to a 1 or 2 page document.
absolutely.
Simple
I
steps.
think it's going to be a one-page letter with a recommendation.
A couple of pages, it would be all right.
Yeah.
It'll just,
Short and sweet. Do you need to update that level of service data? But this last note that I have for myself in my notes is a recommendation on a recommendation is forthcoming, this letter, about mechanisms in the city structure for accomplishing Parks and Rec objectives. And we don't have it formalized yet, but we're starting with an image of a three-legged stool. Right now it feels like we have a drawer full of legs. And it's hard for me, representing the city, not to say, people have good intentions and we're trying to get things done right, but the structure is not there to work efficiently for us. Another way of thinking about it that I've experienced is, we all know somebody that has that office desk that looks like a pile of junk and there's no way they can be organized, but if you ask for a 8.5 by 11 envelope that was green, they could find it. That's fine when one person is sitting at that desk. But we have a city of people trying to find things on a desk, and it's very hard when there's not an organized structure with accountability measures, benchmarks built in. So, this three-legged stool, we foresee it as something like City Council, a Parks and Rec department with its own leadership, and this is what we'll get details to you on later. And then the Parks and Rec Advisory Board just serves as that liaison to the community. So we have a city office, we have you all as the leadership, and then an advisory board, all acting to take objectives that are prepared in this and presented in this plan and prioritize them and see them through to completion. What we want to avoid are some of the things that have happened in the past, and I can share one example with you. And it's not all bad news. It's actually great news. The wormhole, you all approved funding for wormhole trailhead upgrades. And I don't know if you've all been out there lately, but it's taking shape. But the way that it has taken shape has been a little inefficient. We rely on volunteers here, and the Trinidad Trails Alliance spends a lot of hours out there doing work in tandem with the city. That's not an unusual structure to utilize volunteers. But the onus has been on the volunteers to go in and actually clean up some of the stuff that was left behind by the city, because there wasn't a really design-oriented plan for this. So I forgot to bring my little notebook in, but the plan for the upgrades at the wormhole was written on my pocket notebook, and Bob just took a picture of it. I sketched it in like 1 minute. And that information got disseminated, and Bob, in doing his due diligence with the million things that he does, found, I got a buddy come out with the bulldozer on Tuesday. Well, the buddy with the bulldozer on Tuesday wiped out the trailhead and created a swath of what will be weeds and runoff, and also what looks like, if you have a truck, you could just drive right up in there. And so what we missed was letting that city employee know what the purpose of this work is, what the picture looks like. Okay, what does done look like? So with a little bit of restructuring of how the Parks and Rec department works, although we don't have a department, and with a more comprehensive and thorough org chart, chain of command. So it's not like, well, you got to ask Eli if you want to know where that envelope is. It's in there. Where's Eli? He's out of town. It's like a design thinking methodology that centralizes planning and implementation would be so helpful for us to get things done. So, and we are ready to help with that as one of the legs of the stool. So that's everything off of my notes. And what time is it? Oh, it's 3:31.
Let's see if there's any other questions from council.
I want to talk about the good stuff, so if you get, I'll wait.
Okay.
We can talk about the pickleball and talk about the...
Yeah. There's a lot of things floating out there, and we just want to, do them right. And I think we can. So, my last question would be, what do we do now? Are we going to get an approval letter? Or,
Now let's go and see if there's any other questions.
I just wanted to say I
sorry.
really appreciate how much work you've obviously put into this. It's a lot of work to read, even so. It's undoubtedly a lot more.
Sorry about that.
No, that's not a complaint. I think it shows passion. So something that I really appreciate is your comments on how do we visualize done, because you want something that's going to be super welcoming and inviting to people coming from out of town and make them want to return. So. And I think everybody is well-intentioned. It's just to get all those intentions aligned and moving in the right direction. So I really appreciate the effort you're putting in. But I have no questions now.
Ms. Grego, do you have any questions? Because she's listening on.
Oh, here. Okay.
Here, do you have any questions? Unmute.
There she goes.
Okay, sorry,
There you are.
sorry. Can you hear me clearly? Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so I think Jennifer brought up a good point about organization. For a couple of years, well, since I've been on council, Parks and Recs have been connected to Street and Bridge. And if the budget allows it, I think we really should consider Parks and Rec as a separate department, because we're trying to tote ourselves as a tourism-related or tourism-friendly community, but it doesn't seem like we're spending as much time on Parks and Rec as we should. Just a thought. I think Jennifer's idea of the 3-pronged stool is great, but that at this point, one prong is missing, and that's a separate Parks and Rec department. That's all.
You know, in follow-up with what she's saying, you know, trying to develop Trinidad as a destination point, and it's really necessary that we develop a good comprehensive plan for our parks and recreation and outdoor recreation. And we've talked about getting all the parks and recreation, outdoor recreation, all under one platform, basically, rather than having like the community center under one and you guys under another, but maybe bringing everybody under one platform, I think would be a good idea in the future, and that would be something that we need to look at. And one thing I really did like in here and that I read is it's so easy for us to concentrate on tourism, bringing tourists from out of town, but kind of forgetting the locals. And in here, there was a recommendation of acknowledging and, you know, the local people that live here, you know, every day of the year, and having something for them to do as well. So I think a combination of both tourists as well as local people is necessary for this to be a complete Parks and Recreation department, and not only from the small children, but up to the elderly, and even the people that have ADA issues. And so I think that it's necessary that we take a look at that. And it's interesting the way that you had, I think, forget which part it was, but how all of the different stakeholders, every other pretty much board and commission has a part in this. And I think that's really important to see, and I'm glad that you guys acknowledge that as well. One thing that you mentioned in here, I was going to ask you about this, you said personnel issues in the entire Parks and Rec should be monitored. I'm not sure, what was that about?
Well, there's no Parks and Rec department, but I would say big picture, it just feels like if me, the chair of an advisory board, has to meet with Bob Just, the city engineer, like that's like, we've met, it seems like there should be an easier way for Bob and me to utilize a system that says, oh yeah, that's the X project. Let me see where that's at. Oh, we're benchmarked at, you know, we're 3 minutes out and we're on schedule. You know, that kind of thing. Another thing that I must report to you, because I hear it, because, you know, people tell me what they see, and that is that there are like employees at the community center that are like looking for something to do. There's people in the office there, but there aren't adequate, you know, systems or prerogatives, or I'm not actually sure the exact details of all of it, but when a user comes in and they see 2 or 3 people sitting and there's no gym equipment for them, and this studio is in disarray, what is the message to our community about health and wellness, about recreation? I mean, we're the mighty miners, that's what I thought. Shouldn't we have like a kicking kind of busy, people like, you know, somebody behind the desk answering phones. I've called there and you know, the phone system isn't enough to handle these. So online registration for programs. I mean, just bringing things up to date. So.
The next thing I wanted to ask you about is that you mentioned about a unique logo recommended in here.
That was from the previous year.
And what is the advisory board current thoughts on something like that?
What we know through Jared, who we work with a lot, is that the logo that was created during the Greenways study is being used now regularly for all the parks and upgrades. So he had a sign made for the wormhole and that looks like, I can find it for you just here. That was this study. Okay.
Oh, yeah, okay.
So we have some graphics up there. That's all I know about that, but that is something that we inherited from the 2015.
And the reason why I bring that up is I know the Lodging Advisory Board is looking at maybe creating the tagline, but also a logo, general logo for the
Yeah.
entire community. So I don't know if.
Wouldn't it be
that-
amazing if we just had one, like, branding piece that
It would
goes
be,
across
it would
Parks
be
and
nice.
Rec and-
At the same time, though, you look at the Parks and Recreation, might need a different logo, we don't know, but I think that would be something for you to take back to your advisory board.
Sure.
Have a discussion on it, to see, how, and of course, it depends as to what kind of logo that the advisory board comes up with, if they have anything. So I think that would be something of interest. The other part I was gonna say, there are two areas in the community, the entire city, that are actually missing a couple of parks. The one is up in, there's no park up in the Allendale area, and there's no park listed out at Pinion Terrace. I think out at Pinion Terrace, I think that when they did that property out there, they designated an area for a park. So that would be something to look into for future, because right now there's, I think there's like 80 parcels, and the majority of them have been built out, and there's a lot of children up there, mainly even adults, so.
That's where that level of service
Yeah.
data,
So it'd be something for you to look at. But you, I think you did a really, you and your advisory board, you guys did a really, really great job of this document.
we didn't lose anybody in the process.
So, Mr. Reaper, where do you recommend we move this movie? I guess the next thing, you're gonna provide that simplified document.
Yeah, we're gonna come to you for next steps on restructuring in the three-legged stool, so we're on that, and we meet in less than 2 weeks.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, a couple points I want to make. So first of all, we have our newly created Lodging Tax Advisory Board. We have a couple members here with us, and I'm sure they're clamoring to talk on a lot of the things you brought up. One thing I think is important is to remember the ordinance that we just passed contemplates 30% of lodging tax revenue going to quality of life, specifically Parks and Rec. That's the goal of it. We'll later on this agenda have a discussion about a potential ballot question to increase that amount. So we're looking at coming back in 2024 with a full semblance of some sort of a Parks and Rec department, to Jen's point, and to, I think, what the community really deserves and needs. What we envision happening between now and the next couple of months is connecting Parks and Rec with the Lodging Tax Advisory Board and maybe having a couple of joint sessions so we can talk about funding and needs and understand the two roles together and come back with some recommendations. The next thing I wanted to mention is, as far as the master plan goes, it's incredibly important as we enter into a strategic plan citywide that we include that document among other plans with our strategic planning consultant to make sure the tenets of that are included and considered. So we just received proposals back last week for our strategic planning process. We're evaluating them now and hoping to make an award of contract in the next couple of weeks and get that process started fairly soon. The other thing I wanted to mention is that Jen mentioned the need for a statistically valid survey. We already have that contracted and we'll be deploying that in August. So it's the National Community Survey, and many of the questions, I think there's 106 questions total, are quality of life focused, Parks and Rec focused. So we should be able to get some great benchmark data from that survey. It is, again, 100% statistically valid. It's sent out to a random sample of our population, and we'll work on that. And then the last thing I just wanted to say on taglines, logos, that type of thing, you are correct, Lodging Tax is having a discussion on that tomorrow, and I think it's important that we start thinking about how we're going to brand and express Trinidad's image. But two things I wanted to mention is the state is starting a statewide tourism campaign that I think we should consider and certainly talk with our Lodging Tax Advisory Board about, and maybe consider partnering on that so we're consistent statewide. That's something that's coming up. But then the other thing is the strategic plan. I can't emphasize enough the vision, mission, and value statements that we come up with in our strategic planning process really should guide us as to where we want to head for a tagline and that type of thing. I'd hate to tell a strategic planning person that we've already defined Trinidad as this before they've even had a chance to come talk to our community and really advise us. So those are my thoughts, but good work. I know you all, and most of our boards and commissions do all of this work and feel like there's a disconnect. So these opportunities to come talk to the council are tremendously important so we can all share information, share knowledge, and well taken on the disorganization in our structure right now. I couldn't agree more that we have a lot of work to do on a reorg in many ways.
I think it would really be really super important to develop a simple mission statement for Parks and Recreation. Because that's what would drive everything, is your good mission statement. Because as we try to develop, like I said, this area as a destination point, we need a good comprehensive plan. This is a good beginning, and everything else that will follow should be driven by that mission statement. So, anyway, good work. Thank you, and thank your board for everything that you've done.
Just one final thought, I want to say thanks to you guys. And since Mr. Ruger has been here, we have been making jabs, and we talk about that survey. So
yeah,
things are happening in fits and starts. We feel that. We can't wait to help everybody work smarter, not harder, and put people in positions where they can get work done that makes them feel meaningful and serviceable. So
Okay. Thank you, Jen.
Thanks a lot.
Appreciate it. Thanks for your time. Item 2, our Lodging Tax Advisory Board request.
Did you guys do all the fancy Zoom stuff? You go ahead and share the screen for me. There you go.
Hello, Mayor and City Council. I have been honored to serve as the chair of the newly created Lodging Tax Advisory Board. We've had a total of 3 meetings since our formation, and we are excited and energized to promote our lovely city. As we all know, Trinidad is a special place, but sadly we have struggled to properly promote our home. The board is looking to promote tourism responsibly as to not grow it too quickly, but our downtown businesses are struggling and must have tourism dollars to survive. Trinidad's restaurants, bars, museums, and shops are assets, and one of the many reasons we all feel a strong sense of community. We must remember that we are all neighbors, and our goal is to promote our neighbors so that our community thrives as a whole. For these reasons, our board has 2 strong recommendations we would like the council to consider. First, our city has had many people assign a tagline to it, but none of these assigned taglines have ever really stuck. We believe that asking for community involvement will foster a sense of pride in a tagline. We have developed a process. First, we'll ask our community to submit taglines. Then the LTAB will pick what we feel is the top 5 entries, and then the community will vote and choose one of these 5 entries. We ask that you allow us to implement this plan with the community. Once we have a tagline for the city, our board will use it to promote the city of Trinidad. Second, our board believes that our current marketing plan is not effective as tourism in Trinidad is down 12% per the state of Colorado's Data 5 report. The Data 5 report also has given us our top 5 points of interest based on cell phone tracking. And these are going to surprise you. Number 1 is the Trinidad History Museum. Number 2 is Trinidad Lake State Park. Number 3 point of interest in Trinidad is the Walmart. Number 4 is the West Spanish Peak Trailhead up on Cordova Pass. And number 5 is Weston, Colorado. So we really need to think about our assets and where we are actually helping get our tourists to. Our current strategy relies heavily on print ads and billboards, but neglects a strong, cohesive digital presence. It is proven that digital ads are the most effective and traceable advertising that works for all age groups, not just young people. The millennial generation in particular is, currently in their 30s and 40s, and they have the most expendable income right now. according to when you look at who's got the most dispensable income. This group who grew up with technology needs to be targeted and brought to Trinidad to help support our local economy. We need your approval to get a campaign started. And now I'll turn it over to Jason, who's agreed, along with Joe, to do some digital work for our city for free. So.
Sorry, these print out a little funky. It's upside down flipping. I'll email this to everyone afterwards. Thank you.
No worries.
Okay, Mayor, Council, thank you for your time today. Cool. Yeah, so I'm here today to talk about a proposal for a digital marketing ad campaign, but from the Lodging Tax and Advisory Board. Something that can be implemented fastly and affordably to help our local businesses, sales tax and lodging tax and revenue this summer. So there was a study that I will jump into in just a second that was done last year, and it evaluated tourism numbers over the last few years. Some of the same data points that Lee just mentioned that are based on cell phone tracking. They're the most accurate way that we can currently track people coming into town, and all of these numbers are for people that came from over 50 miles away. So from 2019 to 2022, our tourist numbers were down 12%, which is pretty surprising considering since 2019 we've opened a new state park. We have countless new businesses, restaurants, soon to be a brand new hotel, more hotels downtown coming, new galleries, plant shops, grocery store. We've got a lot to offer compared to what we did in 2019, but our tourist numbers are down, unfortunately. So I'm sure, as all of you know, we are mostly a summer town currently for tourism, and winters are very, very tough for our local businesses. Some of them shut down, most of them at least minimize hours, and sometimes that also means having to lose staff or have minimized hours for them. But unfortunately, mortgages still due, rent still due, people have to still pay bills in the winter. So people really rely on the summer to keep them afloat for the whole year. And as we all know, we've had a rough go at it lately with some of our tourist attractions, including Artocade, Art Cartopia, and the Blues Fest. So we lost 2 of our 3 biggest tourism events for this summer, unfortunately. So this year, just speaking with a lot of local business owners, they're seeing the beginning of the year, and this time of year, about June, is really when we start to see things pick up around town. And they're seeing their businesses down 25 to 40% over this time last year even, which is really unfortunate. And as we could expect, without 2 of these 3 big local festivals that typically happen around September, October, things are going to get tougher as this summer goes along. And we've also seen a few other local businesses shut down, and I know quite a few that are really close and they're really on the brink, and they really need a good summer to stay open. And if we don't act fast, we will continue to lose some of our local businesses and deter our sales tax and lodging revenue. Okay. So I'll just quickly go through this, and this is a study happy to provide to all of you that was given to us done last year from Datafy, and was provided to the Lodging and Tax Advisory Board. And you can just see the little map that just kind of includes Trinidad and what they're basing this data on, and it is from cell phone tracking data that, for better or worse, all of our phones are being tracked every day, all the time. And this just kind of shows here quickly from 50 miles out our volume estimates. So one good thing that we said is that people do seem to be staying a little bit longer. We are just not getting as many of them. What I also saw really interesting in this piece of data is that numbers in 2021 were also, they were down even further than last year. And 2021 was a year when we were just kind of sort of getting out of COVID and everyone was just traveling in their car a lot because that was kind of the only way to get by. But we did not see as much of that as we would have liked to. So just another piece of data. And then most of this is probably no surprise to any of us, but just our the top markets that we are seeing people come from for tourism. Denver, Colorado Springs, Dallas, Amarillo, Albuquerque, and Houston are our top markets. And places like Oklahoma City, Phoenix, Austin, San Antonio, every city was on every year of this list. So that's pretty interesting. We have pretty consistent places where we send to see tourism from. Another piece of interesting information here is just our demographics, broken down a few different ways. But one interesting part I saw was that 64.9% of our visitors are age 25 to 64, and the highest percentage of visitors are in that 45 to 64 range. So why our tourism numbers are down, and that's hard to give a specific answer, but just looking at some of the data and the opinion of the Lodging and Tax Advisory Board, we definitely believe that using some of the outdated marketing advertising practices such as billboards and magazine ads are definitely part of the reason, if not a big part of the reason why some of these numbers are down, as these practices are just not as effective as they used to be. And they also typically target an age group that's 65 and up. So kind of what we're seeing is that we don't have a marketing method right now that goes to our largest group of people that are tourists, and that also that are in their top spending years. And currently, using billboards and magazines, respectfully, it's a little bit of throwing something at the wall and hoping it sticks, type of marketing, and placing a billboard 600 miles away and hoping someone will see it and stop in to Trinidad on their vacation. It's likely already planned is tricky. When we could be doing things like finding our target market where we have 65%, nearly 3/4 of people, and most of these people are on social media. About 70% of people are on Facebook, and 60% of those people log in every single day. So places like Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok, and then search engines like Google and YouTube. And between those five, that will get just about every single person that uses a phone, the internet, in any way possible. So this is really something that has bothered me for some time. YouTube is the second biggest search engine in the world. It's where people go to research in a video platform. So just typing in Trinidad, Colorado, these are the first 3 videos that we see. And right now, there's really nothing that's coming directly from us. As a city, as the tourism board, we're not being able to tell our own story, and the story that's being told about us right now from other people is not good. It really doesn't reflect who we are as a city. The first video, it's not really well done, but it's not too bad. It's just kind of on history and information, but it's really boring, honestly. The second one, it's actually pretty high on Trinidad, but it's just not really well done. It's from someone just with their phone walking around town. She said we had really nice people, but kind of digs into former sex change capital of the world, which is part of our history, but maybe not what we would like to see on number 2 in the search result, and number 3, worst places in Colorado. And there's several more similar things like that: worst places to visit, worst places to move to. And if someone's interested in Trinidad, Colorado, this is just not what we want them to see right off the bat. So this is
a question.
Yes, absolutely.
Where did this information come from on this?
So I just went into YouTube, and you could do the same. Go to youtube.com, and I just typed in Trinidad, Colorado.
Who put that in there? Do you know?
Oh, I did.
Oh no, I meant
The actual videos.
the actual.
Councilmember, it's different users of YouTube who are just doing their own independent
So
videos about
it was
the
not, nobody really.
Nobody here, nobody.
Yeah. No, I was just curious
Yeah.
why that got like that.
Yep.
Okay. I understand what I just was.
Sure, and
curious.
anyone that has any questions, please interject. I don't expect any of you to be experts in this, and I'm a bit nerdy, so I would love questions to help make sure I get all my points across. But yeah, these are just, anyone could go and upload something to YouTube, you know, we could upload anything that we want there. But really kind of my point is that, you know, as a city, as a tourism board, we don't have anything there that can kind of deflect some of this stuff and really show like who we are. You know, some of the great assets that we have, our state parks, you know, our hiking, our downtown businesses, our architecture, our history, and you know, being able to tell our story rather than have someone else do it, I think would, oops, how do you go back? There we go.
Mr. Decker, can I ask you a question?
Yeah, absolutely.
The three videos that you mentioned here, I have seen those before. Someone brought it to my attention. I Google it. I mean, you search in YouTube, and I did see those. Do you and Joe, do you guys know how to get videos in that would supersede those? I mean,
Yes.
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 Okay. Yes, we do.
That would.
Yep, absolutely. And part of what we're... No, that's okay. Yeah, feel free to interject. I'm totally okay with that. Part of a video campaign that I would like to create, that I will be creating the videos, running all of the campaigns, and only we're asking for advertising spend. Everything will be done pro bono from Joe and I. And yes, I do know how to help get the video up into this area. Nothing's a guaranteed with this kind of thing, but this is my area of expertise, and I do think that I can help get that up there, which will you know, help us with some of this.
Okay.
I'll interject something too. When we get a video up that looks good, that we like, we can ask our citizens to watch it and comment on it, and that'll send it to the top of the list, and so we'll send the worst place in Colorado to the bottom of the list. That's our goal.
When you create a video, how long would you hold that before you change it to another video? Because one thing you don't want to do is leave it there too long, because then people get bored with it. And then so
These videos have been
change
here a
it.
while.
Yeah.
A long while.
Yeah, there's several different types of video. What I will be proposing here shortly will be about a 15-second video that will be run on social media campaigns as a way to get people into Trinidad. It's something that's short, that'll, people have short attention spans now. This is a little different way to be doing research. So someone looking for things to do in Trinidad, they're very interested in Trinidad. They're either in town looking for something to do, or they're considering coming here. But just kind of as this shows, the one is the same video again, which doesn't relate to things to do in Trinidad. The second one is free places to go, which is exactly what we want.
What's interesting, like, so you're going to create a 15-second video, and I was noticing that the time frames on these videos are like, 12 minutes, 18 minutes.
Some of these, this would probably fall into a more comprehensive campaign, which I absolutely believe that we need to do. But also, this 15-second video could show as an ad on top of them when people are searching for things to do in Trinidad, because right now there's really not a real video on it, to be honest. But if someone's interested in coming to town, there's not a video of what to do, they're going to think there's nothing to do when there's lots to do. This probably falls into something for another day, but something that should be done. We do have one nice video out that I believe a third party created. It was about 6 years ago. It's a little bit outdated, but it is a nice video. If I could find where it was uploaded to, there are certain tactics and things that I can do to help try to bump that up to the top, because it's probably the best asset we have right now, but we also definitely need a newer one.
Jason, have you done any market studies with other cities our size? You said 12% decline. With some of the amenities of other cities, do you find that the norm is just the economic situation?
This was just a study that was done for Trinidad by, I believe, a private firm. I'm not quite sure, honestly. I don't know, but I know there is a new tool that is being used in Trinidad. If I'm able to have access to it, then we'll be able to track all this same kind of stuff, and I could look at that.
The other thing
if that's appropriate.
The other thing that's interesting, kind of what he was saying, is that, what we're seeing as far as downturn in tourists and stuff, I'm wondering if other, because like say we're a border town, if other border towns are experiencing the same thing.
I'd be happy to research that more, but I'm not sure off the top of my head. I just
Yeah.
researched Trinidad on this and just what was kind of provided from that study.
I think, if you don't mind me interjecting, I think
Please.
what Mr. Decker is saying is like, Trinidad has added so many good things in this short period of time that we would hopefully be able to draw additional people here, even with the decline in people intentionally visiting for marijuana. We should be able
That's
to,
absolutely my point.
yeah, we should be able to at least offset the loss or flatten the curve, we call that in my industry, or maybe even increase the curve a bit. And I mean, I really agree with that. We just have to get the message out there.
Yeah. 100%. And I've got a few more pieces of data that I'll show, and then feel free to interject, and happy to answer questions as long as you would like it. But video is really what is pushing the numbers these days. Everyone loves to watch video. It's very effective. It's just a few quick marketing statistics here. 93% of businesses land a new customer because of video. Obviously, we're not a business, but I think that's pretty applicable. And 91% of marketers are satisfied with the return on investment, or money returned after a video and a video ad were created. And then the second image says 92% of video marketers say they've gotten a good return on investment from video marketing. So, and it's really what's kind of pushing the dial these days. It's interactive. People sit here and watch them all the time. And I would definitely love to have a longer video created by something, and that will probably be a proposal we'll have here on another day. But really just going for something short and sweet that I can implement as quickly as possible to try to help our tourism numbers this summer. But as a bigger strategy, I would love to have more video, if not lots of them. Work with some of our, okay, this is where I have to get to. How do I access this? Oh, yeah, absolutely. Let's see.
So,
I've got a couple of video ad examples.
yeah, they didn't come up with their own.
Yeah, I didn't think so. Okay, cool.
We're gonna get fancy. Which ones do you want to do first?
Let's do the CAF one.
Okay.
Okay. And another just quick plug for this weekend. We've got our Trinidad Art Fest coming up. We're really excited for that. And this is a video that you might have seen in your social media running right now that I'm also managing a campaign for that.
Share the screen for that.
It looks like Karen.
Looks like
Yeah, really these videos are short. They do lots of different cuts. They're very non-controversial. We just show things like Fisher's Peak and, people using our trail system, or people using our gravel trail system, or mountain biking, or, some clips of downtown and
Is there
things like that. There is.
Okay, it'll play through here.
Okay.
Just from the line.
Okay, great. Thank you, Steve.
Of course.
And yeah, this is 15 seconds long. Actually, this is 10 seconds long. Great.
There we go.
Join us for the second annual Trinidad Art Fest on July 15th and 16th in Sister Blandina Gardens in historic downtown Trinidad. Featuring live music, great food, and renowned artists from across the region, it's a festival for the whole family. For more information, visit trinidadartfest.com.
So very quick, moving, pretty simple, but it kind of gets the point across and just captures people's attention. And then, let's say, for example, this ad was shown in like Facebook or Instagram. You would then click it, and then we would take you to another page, which we would control, and I'll show you. Okay. This one's from Leonard Park. This one's a little bit different, but I think also kind of shows the same point.
It's like Karen again.
Yeah, it's just kind of showing some of the amenities that are in town, and it's a fun place to visit, and just some of the things that you could do there.
Okay. 3, 2, 1, action. Hey.
Hit play. Try to refresh.
Yeah.
So just real short to the point,
I think the art one is better.
yeah, it'll be much more similar to that one, but I just wanted to provide another example for you. That was what I found today. Thank you, Steve.
Of course.
When I was at the CML, I went to a breakout session on social media, messaging, and all this stuff. And one of the things they showed us was a video that Cheyenne, Wyoming had put together. That was so gorgeous, I wanted to get in my car right that minute and go to Cheyenne, Wyoming. I'm like, but they used all of the things that make Cheyenne beautiful.
Absolutely.
They, I'm sure they're hiding other parts,
right.
but it really was.
Of course,
an
you're showing
appealing
your
job.
best foot.
Yeah.
And that's really what this campaign is about, and just targeting our top tourism markets to start. Just something to help us this summer. I'm a big advocate for having a digital marketing agency that would be able to take this over in the past, but I know that takes time, money to get things approved, and we just want to get this implemented quickly. But to be able to, where people are sitting at home at Dallas or Albuquerque or Santa Fe or Amarillo or Denver or Colorado Springs, and while they're just sitting there and they're just hanging out at their house, or maybe they're at work and they're scrolling on their phone, we can start to tell them about Trinidad. And even if they don't click our ad, we're in an awareness stage right now for Trinidad, and the more that you hear something, the more you remember. Man, if we could show them just some of our great highlights, it's going to continue to bring curiosity in, and we have the ability. Yes,
Yeah, when you're talking about bringing stuff in and that, we haven't mentioned the golf course, we haven't mentioned Monument Lake.
Absolutely.
And some of those parks. Have you thought about putting those into our video and that?
Yeah,
Because I think those would
absolutely.
be big drawing. I mean, our golf course is really beautiful, and Monument Lake's really done a great, especially with the mountains area.
Yeah,
And some of
I
the
agree.
stuff that we've done. I think that would be a really good selling point for a lot of stuff for Trinidad. Plus, the town itself, history and that.
Yeah.
And then another thing, what would you recommend for, not so much on, we're doing a lot of this on Facebook and video and all that. What would be the tourist board recommendation for something physically for Trinidad? Not a billboard, I'm saying a billboard, but that's not what I meant, but is there something that we can actually do for Trinidad to get people, once they drive into town, to...
Do you want to jump in on that?
Yeah, I'm gonna jump in on that. So
Sure.
we are gonna have, on 7/25, we invite you guys to all come. We're gonna be doing our goal setting. We're gonna be talking about a strategic plan, and we're gonna start getting it all together. We just wanted to get something out really quick. But yeah, please come 7/25. We got plans. We're really excited. We really wanna show off our city. Yeah.
How are you guys using the kiosks that are in place now?
We're not very familiar with them
Yeah.
at this point, to be honest.
The kiosks were paid by the tourism board this year. We've not had any asked to make any recommendation upon them at all. I believe city staff is handling them fully. If you'd like, we could make a recommendation about them. So, we're happy to do that.
The other thing I was gonna ask you is, I was looking at, this data that you're showing here, and of course, the age group 25 to 34, Facebook is used by that age group mostly. It would be interesting to see between that 25 to even 44 age group and the 18 to 24, how many if there's some data out there that shows how much traveling that age group is doing and where they're going. Are they going to seashores? Are they going to mountains? Or are they going to metropolitan
Sure, yeah,
areas?
we would just have to look at regional, because I think regional is what we're getting the most of right now, and especially just for this campaign, because we know those people come here. At some point, hopefully, we can, market to everyone, but right now, just for budget reasons, and since it's probably just the lowest hanging fruit, we would probably keep it to, our bread and butter tourists that we know. And this just shows right here that this is not just the people that use Facebook, it's just showing you the different age groups that all use it. So there, there are people 65 and up that use it, there are people younger that use it, but it's just kind of one little piece of data showing that it is kind of used by all age groups.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, Jason.
That's okay.
I think I just wanted to comment on something the mayor said, and Frank, you, if you guys don't mind. I'm thinking like, what I'm hearing is that in some ways, I mean, we're in an emergency situation, right?
Yeah.
Like,
I would say so, yes.
Stuff's down. And anything we can do to help small businesses, I think, would be really important. And not important, but I mean necessary. You know, we can look at the stuff like physical presence, and I think it's important to have, like Frank mentioned. But that's almost like pretty easy to do. But in order to use the physical presence stuff, you need to get people here.
Exactly.
And I think it's less important to know what people are traveling for, right? Because we can't create seaside here or a ski resort in the summer. So we almost don't care what people are traveling for. What we need to do, and what you're saying, is we need to look to the groups of people that come here anyway and get Trinidad on their mind. If you get
exactly.
I've said this before, and I'm sorry to overuse it, but Zig Ziglar says, if you want to increase your success rate, you need to increase your failure rate. So if we are getting in front of 10 people, we need to get in front of 1,000 people and get those people here. But that's what I'm hearing from what you're saying is, and then one more point. The quickest way to do that in this day and age is via electronic modes, because even if people don't use social media, like I don't have any social media that I know of, but I do use my phone. Like you arrive in a city and you Google, hey, what's there to do here? And you use Yelp,
We do have a campaign specifically for Google and YouTube as well.
But my point is, I think, you know, we're in an emergent situation. We need to find some way to do that.
Yeah.
So,
and really the great part about this is these ads, we can target them directly to people that have similar interests to, you know, what some of our, you know, our assets are. Like it could be someone that likes golf. You know, that's an asset that we have. You know, it could be someone that likes biking or hiking or outdoor recreation, you know, live music, art, things like that. And we can just directly and only target those people. So that way we're spending our money in the most intelligent way possible based on data, so we can get the best result possible. Now, we can always broaden this out as we go along, but this is just going to give us the most bang for our buck the quickest. What we're proposing is a two-part proposal. So overall, the ad spend for Facebook, Instagram, and possibly TikTok would be for $15,000 for the whole campaign. So I'm just saying roughly the amount of days in here because I know there's city processes, getting things approved, and time to implement. So we're saying it's about 75 days left in the peak tourist system-ish, but for no more than $15,000 total, it might come out to be less than that. So we're looking at roughly $200 a day. And of that $200, we will break that up into about $100 a day. We're going to where people live: Dallas, Houston, Amarillo, Albuquerque, Denver Springs, anywhere within about 4 hours driving distance to Trinidad, I would say. And then of that, we can find the people that, you know, they watched our video, they went to our website, they showed some kind of interest, and we can show that to them again as they happen to be driving up I-25. So there are some real nerdy ways, and I won't get into how to do that, but it's definitely possible that we can have one little piece of data that said you were in Dallas, you watched our video, you spent 5 minutes on our website, and now you're heading up I-25. So we're going to reel them in, get them off the highway. And then also just general people who had not happened to be from these markets or didn't see our ad for some reason, and we could target them going up and down I-25 within just a couple of hours while families are on road trips, friends are on road trips. There's probably most of the car sitting there scrolling on their phone the whole trip. So, yes.
What is your thoughts about the second marquee between Larkspur? Because I was back on the interstate yesterday, and for me it was really hard to comprehend and focus on that I'm supposed to be focusing on the highway
Mhm.
because there's so much traffic. So, I mean, peripherally, I caught a glimpse, but I didn't understand even any of the advertisements that were shown.
Are you referring to like billboards?
Yes.
Things? Okay.
The marquee billboard.
With that
Yeah.
electronic
Well, the
billboard.
electronic billboard.
Yeah.
Sure, so.
Because I
um,
don't know, is it feasible to spend what we're spending on a 7-second, I don't know how many times during the course of the day it's
I'm
occurring?
talking about that right now, yeah. So I've contacted some of our billboard people who we currently have accounts with. And the billboard that we do have up, it's actually between, kind of in the Monument Hill area.
Yeah.
And it just kind of goes one time every hour for only 6 seconds it's shown. And so you're not able to actually like have a full-on video. The cost of that would be around $200,000. Like it's an astronomical amount. And the fact that when you look at that billboard, I go by that billboard, and every time I go to Denver, I'm looking to try to find the Trinidad ad. I've never seen it yet.
I've never seen it.
I've never seen it yet.
I-
We're always looking for it, and the thing is because it's you have all of the lawyers who can spend
Yeah.
you know hundreds of thousands in marketing.
Right.
And you have other things, and I've seen Mr. Azar's ad 8 times.
Yeah.
I've seen McDivitt law firms. They just have a marketing power that we just don't, and so our ad is diluted, and it's not financially worth it
That's
for
why,
us
that's
right
what I was
now.
asking.
This is so much cheaper, and we can make a quicker impact, so we can get more bang for our buck. And then as Trinidad does grow, if we want to get into something like that, we can. But let's be honest, I think about big tourism towns like Vail and Breckenridge. I don't see them advertising on those. I see, law firms in those because they're doing campaigns like this that are more personal and more tailored to the consumer.
Subliminally, what's the retention factor by seeing a 7-second?
It's
I can't imagine it's very high because
Can't be.
there's no way to quantify the data for it, but on this, we have data, we have assets that we learn from. The Lodging and Tax Board is really big on data, and I'm a total geek on it myself, so all decisions are made off of data, and depending on how they are working, data can be adjusted, but it turns into an asset for the city when a billboard, people are just driving by, they're going somewhere, it might just be someone that lives in Castle Rock driving by there on their way to work, and it's not targeted. You don't know what kind of person. That could be any kind of person that might not have interest. Trinidad's not for everyone, but not everywhere is for everyone. But instead of having a billboard somewhere or a magazine that someone's reading it for one purpose, that kind of you blitz over advertising.
The other people in the vehicle would focus on that because they're not driving. Person driving, if you're by yourself, you're not going to pay much attention to that.
Yeah. Absolutely, and just the big piece for me is that there's just no piece of data to know if it ever works, and there's pieces of data here that we can tell that work, so everything will be trackable, and I'll kind of get into that at the end. So we'll have a piece of data at the end that we can look and determine if we thought it was a success or not. It's not 100% perfect guaranteed data, but it's pretty close, and it's a heck of a lot better than a billboard.
Well, in my past life, one thing I recognized is any kind of marketing you do it's never guaranteed.
Yeah, absolutely. So as mentioned, we will go to our big markets and market the things that we believe we have as assets to the people that like those type of things. And as mentioned, I will create these ads, the video, and run them at no cost. This would just be for ad spend that would just go directly on a debit card, a credit card, a bank account going right to there. So there's no handling of money by me in any way. And I'm just happy to do this pro bono because that's why I joined the Lodging and Tax Advisory Board, and I just want to promote Trinidad and our tourism department. So I apologize for this. This landing page example right here, it's not a good example, and frankly, I just ran out of time making this presentation. So, so this is somewhere, for example, where we would send someone to if they decided to click on the ad, but even if they don't click on the ad and they see the video, that's also effective. But obviously this would be tailored to Trinidad. We could have things, like information about our state parks, our museums, our architectures, whatever we decide to highlight, and then we have something where they're able to basically add their email in for more information. And maybe that's something like we find some local businesses, museums, whatever, that say, maybe there's a 10% discount coupon for you, and we can reach out to everyone if they'd like to participate. They can be in the ad. That would be probably more effective. It's a little bit more incentive to give someone your email address. Or we could just have something where you just download it and it gives you a presentation about Trinidad, or just highlighting a few things in it. But then from that, we get another asset from this campaign, which is their email address. And doing this, they understand that we will be able to contact them, and we can let them know about events going on, things going on, new developments, new trails opening, things like that. So we're able to keep in touch with them. So that's extremely, extremely powerful, and is one of the most important modern methods, and is an asset for any modern business.
Who would be the admin for that?
That would probably be me as well.
Karen might want to say something.
Karen, did you have a question?
I have a question.
Yes.
A couple questions.
Please.
Actually, if this is a good time.
Absolutely, go ahead.
Okay, so several weeks ago, we got a presentation from Anissa about Wish Trip, that app that's
Absolutely.
being used. Are you going to integrate that into this Google and Facebook page ads? Or
this is another thing that we could add on that landing page example that I just showed. So they could then sign up for the app. They could have several options depending on how they like to interact. But yes, that would definitely be included in there, so we can use that as an asset to highlight Trinidad as well. So we can have them all intertwined and working together in the best way possible. Some people don't like apps, some people don't like emails, and other people that don't want either of those will just be able to learn more about Trinidad on there, and we'll probably have a video, some great pictures and information on our trails, our outdoor recreation, whatever we choose to highlight on there. But we'll make sure that Trinidad look good.
Okay.
Absolutely.
What kind of time are we talking about, Jason, as far as getting these
how
ads
quickly can you
created?
approve it? So for the, and I can't speak for Joe on this because this would be his part, but Google Ads can be done very quickly. I can also work very quickly on video. We also have a lot of assets. I have some video assets personally, and I've spoke with several other community members in town that have some great assets on some of the things that we want to highlight. And it's only a 15-second ad, and I probably already have 5 to 7 seconds of it ready, so I can get it going very quickly. I'm definitely very motivated to get it live. So I would say from approval, I would say probably within a week, if not faster. I'm definitely very motivated to get this out here for our local community because tourism season's short, and we're maybe 1/3 of the way over, and speed is everything at this point.
A lot of people want to
That
contribute.
after your presentation.
Okay, I have, this is just a nuts and bolts question.
Yeah, please.
So I know those are physical billboards. We sign contracts on those. How close are we to getting rid of those billboard contracts?
I am working on it, Karen.
So I'll just skip to this right now since.
So we're spending about $18,000 right now on the digital billboard a year. I'm talking with that guy currently. There's another billboard right outside of town, which we may choose to keep just because it's just right outside of Trinidad. But I'm looking into all that, and I'm digging in and finding out when they do expire, when we can get rid of them. Because if it's a digital one, they just flip the switch off, and it would be really a quick way for us to save that money and then take that money and apply it here. So.
And also just since we've been on the Lodging Tax and Advisory Board, there's already 2 contracts that we declined renewing, which account for about $25,000 in advertising spend, which would more than cover this campaign.
Okay,
And we
that's
do.
what I'm all,
I'm sorry.
I'm all about the money, you know?
Absolutely. I'm not coming to you with an ask without a solution for that. And as we are going through and evaluating things as contract comes up, I would expect, more cuts from things such as, billboard advertising, which we don't believe is effective as something like this.
I had a lot of billboards when we owned a restaurant, and I never could, first of all, you cannot track what that billboard's doing for you. And number one, and number two, I never felt I got my money's worth out of those billboards. They just weren't effective. I'm not a billboard fan, period. So I think it's great what you're doing in actually a short amount of time. So
Thank you.
I'm excited about it.
Yeah, and another thing with billboards is once you get it up, that's what it is. You can't just go and change a billboard when I could adjust an ad or video pretty quickly if we decide, let's just say this was something that was going on year round. We could target it more towards, winter activities. We could have about some of the bigger events going on in town. We could do it seasonality. In the spring, we could talk about how Trinidad is warmer than most of the state and we're a great place to visit right now for outdoor activities when everyone else is covered in snow.
Yeah.
So we could get really specific on this.
May I ask a question?
I got one more bit to add to it.
So let's say hypothetically you could do this overnight and start tomorrow. And I just wanted to ask this because I suspect it may be on some businesses' minds. The ad campaign would be Trinidad at large, not any business specific.
Absolutely. So this would come from the Visit Trinidad tourism thing and would not target any business specifically. So that no one is left out, but no one is also included.
I suspected that was your answer. I just wanted to get it on the record. I had a question for Mr. Ruger, if I may.
Yeah.
If they've the board has alleviated themselves of recurring burden of money to the tune of, what'd you say, $25K? Is that, and I don't know if the rules would allow it, but is that something that you could, as a manager, authorize the expense of under your authorized expend limit?
Mr. Mayor and Councilmember Williamson, so the budget for this year has already been set. So anything outside of what has been established in the budget would have to be an authorization made by City Council, unfortunately. I think we're all really excited to come back in 2024 with a fresh budget and more flexibility than what we have for this year. But we can put it on the agenda if you all would like that as soon as next week and have that budget adjustment done after the 18th.
And I just want to add a little bit more about being able to tailor these ads. Like, as you mentioned, Mr. Shu, about the golf course. Let's say we do some ad because, Trinidad does own the golf course, so it helps. Let's say the ads work too well and the golf course gets over inundated for what it can handle right now. We can kind of scale those ads back and, be able to get a better trickle in. So it's all about having a responsible, we want to bring people here, but if we bring the town has 10,000 people here all of a sudden on a weekend, we can't handle that, so we need to kind of be.
We'd like to try.
Yeah, we gotta ratchet it up. So we gotta bring it up, but we don't want to overdo it if it's going to be overburdensome.
Well, it's just a point that's some of our best assets in Trinidad are those areas. And I would like to make a suggestion. I don't know if it's possible, but I think we could really benefit if it, like I say, I'm just kind of shooting in the dark. Our kiosks that we have down here, would it really be nice if we could put one at Walmart? Because people go there a lot of times off the highway just to stop and get gas and eat. Then they drive on through. And they're not looking at the phone or anything else or whatever. But if we put a nice kiosk at Walmart would let us do it right there with your videos of the town and what we got, I think that would be a great selling point for us to draw people. And because it's right there, and that's what I meant, where we would have something physical for the town itself. Because, people stop there with their kids, they go to the bathroom, get food, whatever. And if we had it right there and they show it Trinidad, you know, kids are nosy, everybody will go look at it. I think it would be really a great asset, better than what we have down on Commercial Street or something. I'm not saying it wouldn't work there, but I think that would be one of the really good selling points for
And
us.
some other things that you do which are cost effective are just simple banners with QR codes, where people just scan something on their phone and it gives them information, and those are very, very cheap and quick and something. You know, this would be more effective, but this is more complicated. And while print advertising, it does work in some situations, and something like that, that's an example of something that would work for print advertising or banners and things like that.
Well, yeah, and you can advertise all the businesses and restaurants that people could come to and see what we have.
Well, I think, you know, at this point, like I said, you know, we have, we get kind of a consensus. Do we want to move forward to have this on the next agenda for that $15,000?
And then it will be, so it will be 20,000 total, and this, the other 5,000 will be for Google and YouTube. So that will be when people search for Trinidad, we'll be able to have an ad, and instead of going to a third-party website or someone else talking about us, we are able to control the narrative. You know, same thing on YouTube. You know, if they're looking for things to do in Trinidad, Colorado, you know, we can show them our ad and bring them to our site with our resources and let us tell our story our way, rather than, you know, letting some of these others.
You can show, after you spend that 20K, you can show the results.
Absolutely.
I mean, those are tangible.
That's the whole idea, for sure. You can show the results, and then I'll just kind of skip over some of this stuff since I think I got my point across. I wanted to be as comprehensive as possible. Yeah, so we're
I have another question.
Yes.
I'm sorry.
No, please go ahead.
After you create these ads, who's going to vet them, or who's going to be in charge of approving them and getting them online?
I believe that's our job as the
Mr. Mayor and members of the Lodging Tax Advisory Board Council. So the ordinance specifies that the lodging tax is advisory to you all and serves at your pleasure. So that's a decision you all can make as a city council to delegate that to the Lodging Tax Advisory Board when you approve those funding and say, yes, you all go take care of this and do this.
And then come back to report.
Can you put that on the agenda?
Yeah, we'll put it
I would be happy to share it with you all ahead of time if there would just be a faster way than having to wait, you know, maybe 2 weeks for approval, just since time is such the essence here. I'm happy to share it with everyone ahead of time, but I'm just trying to think of another 2 weeks is important at this point, since we're in July now. We got, I mean, really July and August and some of September for, you know, for our local community.
Let's go and take one more question and then we'll kind of finalize this.
I was just going to comment, and then I did have one other thing I wanted to say, that perhaps we could just set it up that Mr. Ruber could take a look at them before they go live.
Of course.
That might be
Absolutely.
something
Happy to do that.
I think that's wise.
The other question I had goes with your first, excuse me, Karen, with your first proposal to come up with a tagline. We didn't have any discussion about that. I think it's a good idea. We do need something that is powerful and people are comfortable with. But I'm envisioning that that's part of a larger marketing view of the city, where we have a chance to really inventory all of what makes us special, so that when we come up with some sort of a tagline, it encompasses that whole idea. Not just we're gravel grinding, not just that we're art, not just that we're, it needs to be the whole thing. And so that's my only concern about doing a survey that's just going to ask people for input about what they think our tagline should be. I think it should be actually a professional message that takes all that into account.
I think what you're saying is kind of like I mentioned to Jen earlier when she did a presentation. The tagline should be kind of like your message for your community, where everybody can identify with it, whether it's you, whether it's us, whether it's other citizens on the street, or staff. Everybody can tie into and feel, yeah, I'm part of that.
I agree. I think that's really a tough thing to do, though, too.
It is.
It is not something that I think professionals need to give us some input on if we choose this one, perhaps that's going to give a message that you don't want, or perhaps it could be crafted in this certain way that makes sense from a marketing point of view. That's the only concern I had about that point of action that y'all want to take.
Yeah, I agree with you, Erin, and we did speak about it in our meeting, which is why we are going to have the vetting process. Why the board is actually going to take that community input in, and then we'll pick some. So if they come out and, like you said, we need everyone to really be able to identify it. But think about the Corazon de Trinidad. Actually, Mr. Passarelli, I think it was when I read back in 1971, I can't remember his first name, darn. But it was actually a gentleman, Mr. Passarelli, came up with the Corazon de Trinidad through the similar process. And now we don't think anything of it. We are like, yes, it is the heart of Trinidad, our historic district. So I really do think our community has some good input, and I think it would be just like as the Corazon de Trinidad has become such a good part of our community. That was a recommendation by one of our locals. So I think that, yes, we should have some professional input into it, you know, but at the same time, when the professionals come to us, they're going to expect some of our ducks to be slightly in a row. And right now our ducks are kind of everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
So I think if we could at least come with one thing and say, hey, our community agrees that this tagline is us.
I just want us to really have thought through everything that we offer, not just one focus versus another. So that's why
we are going for a real broad. So we'll see what the community comes up with. And let's be honest, if the community comes up with nothing that we think is good, we don't have to continue forward.
Well, the other thing I think you can do is, with that, is that, bring forward all any tagline or two that is recommended, and then get council involved with it as well.
Yeah.
And, it could be that maybe we need to bring in a professional to fine tune it.
Correct. Yeah, but I think if we just start the process to get people, I think somebody out there in our community has got the best one. And I'm really excited to see what it is.
We do get feedback that people would like to be included in some of these decisions for a sense of community.
Yeah.
Well, public engagement is always good. Excuse me.
I can end on this really quickly since I think I got my point across, and I'll save us all some time. So just how do we measure success? So if we just bring in 200 more visitors that spend roughly $100 in lodging or sales tax revenue, which might just be, one average family of 4 or so, that would cover the cost of this. And we also have the Alpha Map, which is able to provide this phone data, kind of same examples like we had before, just different data source. So we're able to see if more people are coming into town if it was effective. And thank you all for your time. I appreciate all the questions.
So let's get a consensus about the dollar amount moving forward. Does everybody feel comfortable?
Yeah,
We'll put it on the agenda.
We're talking about 20,000.
20,000 is the total, yes.
Yes.
Mr. Mayor, I would recommend maybe we just give a little wiggle room in that as well and just match it to the amount you all have saved in the contract, non-renewals, that was 25,000?
Roughly 25, I have to look at the exact number.
Let's do
It's
25.
about to be a little bit more.
Discretionary there too, in case there's change orders or anything that might come up. Okay?
I'm okay with that.
We'll bring that on the next agenda for next week.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you for all the hard work.
Thank you.
Good job.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Get out of that. And Mayor Council, while we're transitioning, I would encourage as many of you as possible to attend the planning session that the Lodging Tax Advisory Board is planning on the 25th.
What time is it that day?
27th, sorry.
Yeah.
She said the 27th.
10
I
to 4.
wrote down 25th.
Yeah, 10 to 4.
Oh yeah, I had it on screen sharing still. Sorry, I don't have
Maybe
it.
we'll start, definitely starts.
We'll send the information out to you all.
It's the
Maybe we're
show.
agenda for tomorrow.
Right.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
our goal for tomorrow's meeting is to make our agenda
Is
for
it
tomorrow,
maybe
so
from
we'll get that
2
out.
weeks from tomorrow?
Oh, that's Karen's.
Is it? Okay. Because she was the last one talking. Yeah. I don't know what to do.
Okay, on to item 3, rules of decorum for city council.
Thank you, Mayor, council members. A subject that is sure to get a lot less discussion last.
Okay.
Just kidding, just kidding. So, everyone, this is I wanted to bring the rules of decorum. Everything okay?
Yeah, I really apologize. That was super, super weird.
I was hoping to bring the rules of decorum before you one last time, for you to discuss anything you wanted to before they were placed on a regular meeting agenda. And so that was what I was doing. Now, yesterday, I sent you, by way of email, a copy of rules of decorum for boards and commissions for the city of Trinidad, and I have hard copies for all of you, especially for anyone who may not, email a lot. Happy to pass these out. But I sent it by way of email yesterday, and if I could, please, Councilman Butler, I'll just give that to you. So there's that. Now, the rules of decorum for boards and commissions is almost identical to the rules of decorum for city council. It's just that, and I talked about this with Mr. Ruger and other staff, it made more sense, rather than always referring in the rules to city council and all subordinate boards, or however I would refer to it. It just made more sense to have two sets of rules of decorum, right? One for council, one for boards and commissions. And I want to say also, before I get too out over my skis, you also have, as part of this item, the existing code 2-15. That is the part of the code that currently exists that touches on the subject of decorum. I mean, it has, things in there that are decorum related. So these will probably go into them. But anyway, I want to say that as we were, posting the agenda, this came forward, Councilwoman Ogletree mentioned the fact that the CML session she was just at, she was at the thing that she had previously mentioned, where they were talking about Bob's Rules of Order. And Bob's Rules of Order, it looks like Mr. Rigger is her favorite because he has a copy. I don't have anything, so.
Basically, what that is
Anyway.
a simplified version of the
Yeah.
Robert's Rules of Order.
Right.
We've been working on that for the last 3 years.
We're working on the rules of decorum?
On that
No,
one.
I'm just kidding. Just kidding. It's only been 2.75 years. I'm kidding. But so I'm fine with the notion of looking at this and any suggestions on decorum and kind of baking these into the cake, if you will, just kind of adding those in. So with your infinite patience, which you have already exhibited, I would just suggest that we maybe talk about anything you want to talk about, but have all of us look at this to see if there's anything that we're overlooking and want to include in our rules of decorum. Is that kind of your request, Councilwoman?
I was just bringing this to our attention because having attended the presentation by Bob Widner, who's been a municipal attorney for 30 years and has been working on all of this for so long, I thought, and I pulled up the one that's on the internet, that's Bob's Rules of Order. It's the one that this is currently being revised into that you have now. But they're very straightforwardly written so that anyone, including our board and commission heads, could understand how it works. And because Robert's Rules of Order, you really have to be someone who's studied it your entire life to understand the scope of everything that can happen in a meeting. And this is much more user-friendly. And so I was just hoping that we could consider adopting the revised Rules of Order, which then we could look at and make changes to based on some of the things that are particular to us. So that's what I'm saying. But we don't have that yet. Did you just receive that?
Mr. Mayor, Councilmember Wiltshire, they've been mailed out. We received one here. I believe they're supposed to be mailed out to all the elected officials as well. I did have a chance to take a look at it. Just for everyone's knowledge, I couldn't find any decorum rules in it. It's all procedural. So what I would and I'm sorry to interrupt.
No, I interrupted you.
No, but I think our decorum rules are different. It's not about who's making motions and seconds. It's about how we're moving forward, how the meeting gets ran, how we interact, those types of things. So what I would recommend is that we can agree on rules of decorum, and then maybe with Les's opinion, if you want to adopt this as your formal rules and not Robert's rules, the original, we can just say anything not covered by these rules of decorum shall default to this.
And if I could, please, Robert's Rules of Order do not have decorum.
They don't.
They are all parliamentary procedure. And so I was surmising that Bob's Rules of Order were probably similar. That is, they were worded much better, straightforward, but did not have rules of decorum. But I don't know that because I haven't looked at it. But these are, my attempt at the rules of decorum, especially for everything that we've had arise in the last couple of years, and not only rules of decorum for council, but for the audience as well.
Well, excuse me, in the prior set that I looked at on the internet, there is general rules covering the meeting as part of Bob's rules. I don't know if they're still in there. And some of those things are things that we cover in our rules of decorum. So it would take, seeing what we finally settle on is what ours are, and then look at the book and what it says to make sure that they are consistent with one another.
Sure.
But I think it's certainly worth us having a conversation about all of these things in the meantime.
Well, and I brought this book here because I've had this now for a couple of years, and it's called Mastering Council Meetings. And then there it talks a lot about not only procedural stuff, but also talks about decorum of presentations, whether it's a public, citizen speaking or someone from council speaking. So there's some decorum stuff in there as well. And I'll have to maybe sit with you and kind of go over some of the stuff because they're pretty simple, but they're very straightforward. And I think it's some of the stuff that we're talking about anyway.
Well, that's fine. I just think a couple of thoughts. One is it's helpful, and I absolutely hear you, Councilwoman Ogletree, and it is important to be consistent. And if there's a point that this book talks about, then to have them read similarly. I just think it's helpful to have something like rules of decorum in one place, right? So because people are forever referring to the ethics code and ethics complaints, it's just helpful to have this in one place. And then if you do want to add anything or suggest anything, that's fine. I've tried to incorporate everything that seemed really important, and also, like I frequently do, this too is kind of a Frankensteinian monster in that it's a patchwork of other, codes and places where people, just other codes in other municipalities have. But whatever you would like to do, however
is
you
there a
would like
couple,
to.
do you want to discuss any of the items on here today?
Happy to, if you like. I don't care. It's up to you.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, if I may chime in, what it would be really helpful today would be for us to hear from you if you feel like there's anything that's missing from this draft or anything that needs to be changed in this draft, and we can take that direction to formalize bringing something back to the council.
Let's check with council, because I've got a couple of items, but let's hear from council first and see what their thoughts are. Anybody have any questions on this document?
May I say something?
Yes, go ahead.
Well, I'm looking at this. I put this rules of decorum that Les sent us, and what's interesting about this is it has all players in city council meetings, what each participant should do, like it addresses what city staff should do, audience members, and I think this should be incorporated into any kind of rules of order that we adopt within the city. Whereas Robert's Rules of Order or Bob's only probably has to do with what council does.
You have a couple questions?
I did. They're, tiny little details. I think generally, Les, you've done a good job gathering everything up. I just had a few things that kind of made me go, I don't know about that.
Sure.
Under rules of decorum for city council, paragraph 3, the last sentence there says, council members may give direction to city staff during their report for any matter that may have arisen during petitions and communications. And what I wondered is, should that not say to the city manager or his or her designee,
Yeah,
since we
good
can't
point.
direct them?
And that, I saw that today, and I was wondering if you guys even wanted to keep that in there, but you're absolutely right.
Okay.
That remains, that should, although, it could be direction of me also, right? But, right, city manager.
And I think the big thing there is direction and not commenting.
Right.
And I think that's the thing that council has to be very careful.
We were trying to get away from that,
Yeah.
right? And not have any response to petitions and communications. That's why I was wondering about that.
Yeah.
You may want me to just remove that provision altogether. You know, if there's something, I'm quite confident that is mentioned at petitions and communications that needs to be addressed by either Mr. Ruger or myself, that will get addressed and we can let you know, right, without further direction.
I think the only thing that I've ever done periodically is when there's been a speaker that comes up and there's something that needs to be addressed, I'll usually refer it to
Right.
the city manager, say, would you please look into that?
Yeah.
And that's about as simple and straightforward as I can get without getting into the weeds on it.
Right. It's just that some speakers may say, you know, okay, are you going to direct him to look into my thing? Right? I mean, we're kind of having a lot of different, combinations and scenarios arise. And so it tends to lend legitimacy to one and not another. I would just say that we may just want to remove that. And if you guys think there's something important, you can emphasize that to, Mr. Ruger or myself after the meeting.
That's what I was going to
We,
say.
again, I think we'll be clued into what you're going to want us to look into.
That's one of the reasons that I think it's important that they provide some contact information so that we can get back.
Good point.
That we can get back to them.
That's what I was going to suggest, is that, we just keep mute on it, and then after the meeting, I can tell either you or one of us can tell whoever it is,
Right.
say, would you please check into this?
And
what
Mr.
this
Mayor,
person said."
Councilmember Ogletree, we've already revised our sign-in sheet to capture email and phone on a voluntary basis. It's certainly not required to speak. But what we could start doing is scanning in the sign-up sheet after the meeting and getting it to you all the next morning. So that way, if you want to follow up with someone who spoke, visually, you can certainly do that.
Okay.
So,
So just remove that line? Good.
That's what
okay, I
I
think it'd be a good idea.
Good.
What else you got?
In paragraph 5, under audience members, there's a sentence, 4 lines into that, as provided in section 2.215, 6B of the code. There will be other times when audience members will be allowed to speak at meetings of city council. And I wondered when how we're saying that, because this is going to guide them in their expectations as well. And so typically, when we have city council, and it's not a public hearing, we're not asking for people to come and speak
You're right.
with us. So what other times are we thinking of? That's all I was trying to get at.
I suggest removing that line as well.
That was going to be one
You
of
know-
the recommendations, too, glad you caught that.
Yeah. But all these things I think were okay 6 months ago. And Mike, no, but I'll remove that.
On the other end of that, one thing that came up when we were talking about new ordinances earlier this year is that it might be a good idea to have a chance for, before the public hearing, before the adoption meeting, that we have a public comment period at that stage, so that if anyone has a concern about something that we're proposing to do, that they're learning about, that's been, in the newspaper and they are aware of it, they can let us know what their concerns are then, because if they bring them to us at the meeting where we're preparing to enact something, it's a little late for us to make a change at that point, or if we do, it's going to delay the effective date of that ordinance.
Well, you know, something that has come up once or twice is that when we were discussing something, and then there is somebody in the audience or maybe a staff member that might have some real pertinent information that I brought them up to give us some additional information. Is there going to be a conflict there with that?
Staff and I think public as well. Public concerns about how it will play out in their own lives, whatever it is that they're proposing, I think would be good for us to know.
Yeah, because like I said, there's been a time or two that somebody I know has had some information that I think we need to hear. And just want to make sure how we handle that.
So
On the agenda item.
suggested,
So I was just wondering if there was a possibility that on the first reading of an ordinance, that we have a public comment period.
Consent, just be the first reading. I think, Mayor and Councilmember, I think that's a great idea, because if you all, on the public hearing at the second reading, were to make significant amendments, it's really a disservice on an ordinance not to have it go to a third reading at that point. So we can probably solve that just by allowing comment at the first reading.
So it's going to be kind of a simplified version of a public hearing?
They won't be sworn in. They
Right.
won't have to testify. They'll just be saying, you know, I saw this, I had a concern about how this might affect my particular piece of property or something like that, just so that we're aware of concerns that are out there. And they have an opportunity to express that.
I have a little heartburn on that because I think that, and of course, like you were saying, is that they do have that opportunity at the public hearing.
But
So-
what I'm saying is that it's a little late then.
We've had several times when something has happened that could have been completely non-controversial become controversial
Yeah.
because we haven't had time ahead of time for people to have comments. So I think what Councilwoman Ogletree is suggesting would be super good. I mean, on the flip side of that coin, if you allow people to come up and comment in a regulated fashion, if you're not adding the downside, I sure wouldn't think.
And I guess it depends on the situation. You know, it depends on the agenda item. Other thoughts? Karen, do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, but you don't want to hear. No, I'm just kidding. Excuse me, it's hard when there's a presentation. I don't know who's speaking or not, so I apologize. I get what we're trying to get the community more involved in discussion on ordinances. But isn't it kind of redundant? Because when we read an ordinance, the mayor says, is there anybody here to speak for or against the ordinance? Isn't that the same thing that we're talking about now?
I think what Councilwoman Ogletree is saying is that they would be given a meeting ahead of time, right?
Right, at the first reading rather than just at the second reading.
A meeting ahead of time when we still have an easy opportunity to make amendments. I think, to be honest, I mean, that would give me a lot higher level of comfort in approving some of those things. Because at some points, you know, we have the input there at the end, and then what's our choices? I mean, not a lot.
Well, actually, in this information item 6, the last item, it actually addresses that. It says individuals wishing to address City Council for an item preparing on the agenda should wait until the item is called during the meeting, and they are recognized by the presiding officer to make their remarks. So basically, that's what you're saying.
I'm just saying that it would be on our agenda that there was a public comment moment available. I doubt that people would come forward a lot unless it was something of particular import. I think a lot of ordinances, they would just be like, but at least it's there so that they have that opportunity. Because I think if I had a concern about an ordinance and I realized the only time that I could actually say anything was the at the meeting where it was going to be enacted,
It seems set in stone.
yeah, it
Um,
seems set in stone at that point.
Sorry to interrupt, Councilman. It occurs to me, Mr. Ruger has had a lot of experience with a lot of cities and larger. Is there any other councils with that sort of process or procedure?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, Councilmember Williamson, every place I've worked has allowed for public comment on first reading. So it is unique to us that we don't do that. Specific to Trinidad, I know of at least 2 occasions where people have shown up to first readings expecting to be able to speak and comment and have been told
I
no.
think it's a good idea.
So the other thing too on that is, you know, in our public comments, we allow 5 minutes. Do you think that we need to set a time limit of, let's say, 3 minutes for something like that? Or is there, you know, what's your recommendation? Because we do have to limit, we have to limit the time
Yeah.
as well.
I mean, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, with all due respect, that's a decision you all should make. I mean, I think 5 minutes is our standard, and that's what we'd keep it, barring any other thing that you would want to change.
Do you feel like during that comment period, 5 minutes is adequate?
Yeah, I think I would say no more than, you know,
Okay.
then
Right.
people won't feel like they have to stand there for 5 minutes. Just, because probably it won't take them that long.
Yeah, I think that's a really, really good idea.
5 minutes?
Yeah.
No more than.
No more than
5
5
minutes.
No more than 5 minutes, right.
5 or less.
Now, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, this would be a good time to ask. We could put in a rule, though, because you may have 100 people show up if it's a very controversial item. I'm used to the mayor having discretion to limit the amount for each speaker in those instances. Certainly, that's objectable by the council. If the mayor were to do that, you could vote on it. But I would think a compromise might be to put a provision in that says, you know, if there's an inordinate number of speakers, that the mayor, with confirmation of the council's direction, can limit the speaker time for an item.
And actually, I do have that. It was going to be
Okay.
my primary question here is, says confine their remarks to no more than 5 minutes in length or adjusted to the number of speakers.
Yeah.
You know, and or the time. You know,
Yeah.
like, let's say we have a controversial item that comes up, and we could say, we limit it, let's say we have 50 people sign up. So we have, let's say, narrowed down to 3 minutes. But let's say we can adjust the time frame to an hour and the 3 minutes, if there's that many speakers, and just also say that anybody that wishes to address the item we're asking that you submit in writing.
My rules are getting longer.
But I feel that that's something that would be.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah, right.
I have just a few more things.
Go ahead.
Under, this is more input from the US on, at the end of paragraph 5, signs, banners, or placards will not be permitted during council meetings from audience members. Is there any issue that you foresee limiting that from the First Amendment point of view?
Well, I don't. I would say that the ability to communicate is there. We're not trying to limit communication. What we are trying to do in that instance is limit the way in which people communicate. I mean, right, otherwise we could have like a, size limitation on signs. That would be kind of silly and kind of would be defeating the purpose. I just think that signs, we can have a prohibition on signs in meetings. Now, I don't know if somebody is outside council chambers like happened last time, inside and out, if there was a sign, but I think for purposes of in council chambers, we can say, because that is basically communicating while not being recognized. And with rules of decorum, it is okay for us to say, one person communicating at a time. You will be given a chance, if you ask to have a chance, you'll be given a chance to communicate, but you don't have to be allowed to communicate in an ongoing fashion with a sign in what is, I would say, is a disruptive manner.
What about for people who are deaf, who can't speak? Would we not need to recognize that at some time that might be useful for them?
We are supposed to have accommodations for hearing impaired. And we used to have a number of people who were hearing impaired, and we would make accommodations for them. I don't know, I'm sure we still have those accommodations for people who are here. I just haven't seen that in a while.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, at the bottom of every agenda actually has the procedure for how you would do that. So individuals needing auxiliary aids may request that assistance.
Okay.
But one thing I did want to mention to your point, and I don't want to put Tom on the spot, but since we do broadcast our meetings, we do have to be sensitive to what might go out. Or is that not the case in terms of vulgarities or anything that might be objectionable? I know it's that way for broadcasting on.
I've never, on my channel, I with Comcast, no.
Okay.
I checked into that. I was
Okay.
a little bit concerned, especially if you do a live broadcast.
Okay. Just
And on YouTube too, but since I started this, I've never edited anything. I just, whatever is there is what I put out.
Okay. Just making sure. Thank you.
The other thing that I think that, I'm not sure how this would fit in, but it talks about when the chair interrupts a speaker or rude behavior, things like that. And it says, this is in this book. It says there are so many instances of rude behavior in public life today that is not easy to know what is civil. Likewise, a false sense of not wanting to be a troublemaker may allow mistakes to slip by. It can be helpful to review some circumstances in which people should be interrupted. And of course, there's some other stuff. It also says behavioral expectations from public comments. It says model courtesy and respect and require members of the public to do the same. Use titles and horrifics, sir, madam, Miss Smith, Mr. Jones. Personal attacks, insults, profanity are not allowed. Booing, hissing, cheering, clapping are not allowed. It says during public comment, the presider should correct members of the public who fail to observe the guidelines. If the presider does not do this, the council member should raise a point of order. Is it important for presider members to speak in firm? Matter of fact, and it also says if members of the public become abusive, disruptive, or violent, the presider has the authority to order them from the room.
Right.
So there's some things in here that
So
I'm not sure how they fall into this requirement.
I think they're kind of all in here.
Yeah.
I mean, right, I mean, I think they're all in here, and it's up to you, and if you don't do it, Mayor, then it's up to council and staff to assist, and that is something that you are allowed to do. If somebody continues to be disruptive, you can have them removed, but it's always at your discretion.
The other thing that I read, it's in here somewhere that, and I'm not sure if we even want to go that far, is public commenting should always refer their comments basically toward the presider and not any individual council person.
I would say,
I'm not sure if that's.
I would say council,
Okay.
right?
Yeah,
I mean, I think council.
Okay.
Okay.
That was the only last thing that I was going to mention is in section 6 about addressing city council only and collectively, not staff or the audience, and not single out members of council. I'm certain there are going to be, I understand the point
Right.
of that is that they're addressing all of us, not one of us or two of us. But there's going to be a time when someone will just mention, you know, I spoke with, you know, Mr.
Sure.
Bono about something, that's
Sure.
not what we're saying, that they can't.
Exactly,
So
exactly.
just that they're not directing their comments
That's
just to
right.
one person.
Especially not personally, like a personal attack on an individual member of council.
Yeah.
That is what I'm trying to do.
Well, a couple years ago, for instance, I was mentioned personally that I was a member of the Good Old Boys. You know, I remember that one.
Yeah, I do. And
Things
that,
like that.
you know, we err on the side of letting it slide.
But I like the idea that it's a reminder to them that they are speaking to all of us.
Exactly, exactly.
That's
But-
all I had.
Good, okay, good. But they will comment like on a way, you know, certain person voted or whatever, and that, I'm done. Thank you.
Any other comments on council decorum rules that Les has come up with? Karen, do you have anything else?
No, sir.
Okay. All right, I guess you got your work cut out for you, Les?
Yes, sir.
All right.
Yes, sir. So we'll get back to you in another year. No, kidding.
Okay, on to item 4, board liaisons, council roles, city boards, ARPA appointees. Mr. Rubin.
Yeah.
Mr. Mayor, this item stems from discussions just in general on how we appoint members of the city council to represent our internal boards and commissions, our external boards and commissions. And just wanted to bring this to you all. I think we should formalize that process. And so that's kind of some direction we're looking for you today. I would suggest that we have an annual appointment date, that we review all of our liaisons and make adjustments as needed. If someone were to leave the council, does that mean now we have to replace somebody else with that person to serve one of our boards and commissions, for example? So what we're really looking for is just adding some structure to it. I believe right now it's kind of the mayor makes a recommendation or asks someone to be appointed, and then we will go through a vote process. So we do have some structure, but I think it's something that would be deliberative by the entire city council and that you all should have a conversation about. And I'll give you an example. If someone wanted to volunteer to serve on one of the boards and commissions, that may not, or as a liaison, that may not get expressed to the mayor, and he may think that somebody else would be a better fit. So I think it's important that we all, in the context of a public meeting, be able to have those conversations. So that's why we're bringing this forward. We do want to specifically highlight the distinction, though, between external boards and commissions where we delegate a representative or maybe more than one, and then internal representatives on our boards and commissions as well.
Questions?
What you said sounds good to me.
Okay.
I agree. Yeah.
So what we would recommend is at the beginning of the year, right at the beginning of January, we would bring an item and set the, have a vote on who's going to be the liaisons and our representatives for that year. In my experience in the past, sometimes city councils do want to kind of shuffle those around annually as well. And it gives an opportunity for someone else to serve on a different board or commission and understand their role and maybe, be kind of a different change for that and get some representation there.
The only thing that I think differently would be is not necessarily changing that, but
Yeah.
looking at the expertise that we have on a particular board or commission.
Agreed.
I think that is really important.
Yeah, agreed.
If there's an emergency situation where somebody has to leave a board because of illness or death or whatever,
Yeah.
can a person temporarily be initiated into that board and then seek other, like the mayor said, someone that's knowledgeable in that area?
Yeah, and I really appreciate you bringing that up, Councilman DeBono. What I would recommend is when we do the adoption in January, we have for each appointee, we have a backup appointee. So for that, in case that person's out of town or whatever, we know who to go to say, okay, you need to attend this meeting because this person's gone. And then if there was a true emergency, let's say a good emergency, someone wins the lottery and moves to Cancun and says, I'm out of Trinidad. Although I would argue Trinidad's better than Cancun.
Oh, good, good one.
But that backup person could serve until the council is able to appoint a full-time member.
Because I think it's really critical that, in-house expertise is really important to our boards and commissions. I think that's one thing that's really, really critical.
Agreed.
Okay. Any other questions on that? Okay, discussion of potential ballot measures. We have some ballot measures. The only ballot measure that's not on here that I've thought about in the past is that, for instance, right now, that a mayor pro tem can only be a mayor pro tem, I think, according to charter for 2 years. So I'm not really sure why that is set like that, where that person, let's say, for instance, that person is, let's say, re-elected or has a 4-year term and that's a council member. Why, if they're in their second 4-year term, why do they have to get off if they've already had 2 years as a mayor pro tem? That's the only thing that I've questioned.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I would say that's a policy decision you all can make. I believe it's that way right now to match the 2-year term of the mayor. Right. So every time we transition to a different mayor, we would have the discussion of who would serve as mayor pro tem.
Do you think they just do an assessment of that 2-year time frame?
Yeah.
Well, the thing, by the way, the charter states is that's the maximum amount that
That's-
you can serve.
No matter what.
Yeah.
Is it termed out? I didn't look at the, okay. That's-
Well, I think it's fair that you do that, because it gives other council members a chance to
Right.
participate.
Right.
I mean, you know, you could have someone in there for eight years and not have a different one, but doing it this way with the mayor to 2 years, I think does make sense. I think it would give everybody an opportunity.
Thoughts from council?
Seems like a good idea to keep it to where it matches up to where the mayor's term, so.
I don't have a problem with the way it is. I think some aspect of having someone who can continue in that role is good, because they've learned some things in the process of being mayor pro tem, but as Mr. Shu says, we can all use learning those things. So I think it's fine the way it is.
Karen, do you have any thoughts on that?
I'm going against the grain again. If you have a good mayor pro tem, especially if you're changing mayors, that mayor pro tem that's decent would be invaluable when you have a change in the mayor's seat. It's a stability kind of thing. Then you've got two people that are in leadership positions are both changing at the same time.
Well, the other thing too is, what if that mayor pro tem's term is offset from the mayor?
Right.
Yeah.
So then you're kind
That's
of
a
like,
possibility.
so that's a good possibility. So that's an issue.
Yeah. Well, I rocked the boat. We'll just.
That's right. Or if the mayor gets
So being that was brought up, what do you guys think?
Well, I think we should leave it, but, that's my
What if
vote.
a mayor gets recalled, Les?
Don't start
Well,
that.
that's a sensitive subject.
It's happened.
No, just kidding. What if? I would say that's pretty unusual. I think we would,
Out of the norm.
yeah, we'd deal with that if,
Yeah.
God forbid, it ever happened.
There's not enough time now.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Aaron, any questions on that?
I think both sides really have their merits. I think to what Councilwoman Grego said, it would be a nice option to have. I think it shouldn't necessarily be required, but in the event of you're changing mayors, hypothetically, let's say you have a mayor coming to council, which could happen with zero council experience, you would really, really want someone filling that position that has a real strong base. And if, let's say you have a person in a second 4-year term and they've already served 2 years, they might be the ideal candidate to be the mayor pro tem, to really stand beside the new, completely inexperienced mayor. I mean, I can see.
I think one way to, if we wanted to do any changes to it, to say, that if there's no one to replace or retain the present mayor pro tem. Could that be?
Well,
added?
then you say
I don't
to
know.
council, you're really not that qualified.
Why don't we just make it simple? But if, instead of a 2-year term, she could be, you don't have to be term limited. Every 2 years, you appoint a new.
That's a good idea, Frank.
Yeah, you appoint, in other words, if she, just say Aaron comes back for election, then we would vote on it again. if we
That's a
want.
good idea.
And that make it simple for everybody. That way you don't have a deal. And it also gives an opportunity for other council members to express their opinion.
And I mean, like, the people up here are gonna have a good understanding of, like, just hypothetically, let's say we did get in this coming one, let's say we got a brand new mayor that has no council experience, and the consistency doesn't change at all. Well, we would say, man, we really need someone to stand beside. Aaron's filled in, she's very qualified. Sorry, Councilwoman Ogletree has filled in, she's very qualified. It'd be a nice option to be able to allow her to continue that.
Sure.
I like that option.
Because, back to a point when Councilwoman Ogletree ran the meeting, I chair a meeting for the South Central Council of Government, and it's a lot less detail-driven than this one. I mean, that's a big step to undertake, and it, especially for a new mayor,
Sure.
you'd be able to help them really coach them in there. So I think you'd want to keep that person in that capacity. So it'd be a good
Hey,
option.
Mayor,
Yes,
Mayor Rico,
yes,
I have a question
yes.
for you. So you're the prime example of what we're talking about. Because when you first got elected to council, you had no prior council experience. So in your opinion, how did the mayor pro tem, how did that assist you? Did you have a seasoned person that helped you, or you just grabbed the horse by the reins and ran with
A
it?
little of both. We
Did
had Michelle Miles,
Right.
who was our mayor pro
Okay.
tem at the time. And of course, she had been on council, so she had experience.
Right, right.
So the other part of it was
Okay.
just grabbing the bull by the horns and run with it, and just doing a lot of reading, doing a lot of asking questions of our city manager at the time, and even of our council. So
Okay.
it just depends as to the mayor as to how they reach out.
Yeah.
And Mr. Mayor, I might
Okay.
add that just even if a person doesn't get selected to continue as mayor pro tem, it doesn't necessarily mean they're going away and forbidden from advising the next mayor. Plus, we want to make sure it's a team effort where staff, legal staff, administrative staff, rest of the council is helping whoever's mayor do their job as well as possible.
So do we need to put that in as a ballot question for the?
Based on today's discussion, we will review the language in the charter and make a determination if we need to submit a ballot question to make this change. Yeah.
It may be a little challenging to nail the distinction
Yeah.
in ballot language. It may be a little challenging to say where we're wanting to go into, but anyway.
Aren't you just changing it from term limited to election?
Well, I would say term limiting. I mean, we'll do it. We'll work on it. We can do it.
Seems
Yeah.
like that would be simple.
Yeah, that's why you get the big bucks.
Yeah, right. That's your favorite saying.
Okay, there's a couple of other ballot questions on here. One of them is just basic of my term limited and 3 other members up for election. That's pretty straightforward.
Lodging tax.
The other one was the home rule charter, voters, McGregor, any questions concerning the landfill enterprise designation and changing it to where taking it out of an enterprise designation? Any questions on that? Leave as is? Okay.
We call that the Cheryl Amendment.
Yeah.
Just kidding.
And then the other item, any questions concerning the additional 3% sales tax that we want to introduce?
To make sure we put it in good language so that people
Exactly.
understand they aren't paying
We will.
tax.
Yeah.
We need to get that as we need a good marketing plan on that so that people will understand the reasons behind it.
Yeah, the guy in the newspaper got to put that in there correctly.
And I think one of the main points to drive home is, well, there's 2 main points. That one, it will not be citizens that are burdened with that, obviously.
Right.
Yeah.
And 2, it's still going to leave us, when you compare to other places, it's going to leave us in a quite reasonable position. And 3, if you can go that far in a marketing plan, when people look for a hotel, they don't say, hey, by the way, what's your nightly tax? I mean, you just look for a hotel where you need to stay and you pay what it is.
Right.
And Mr. Mayor, members of the council, we can't advocate for a ballot question, but we can certainly provide information. And I think one of the most important aspects of this is how this ties in with the new provisions in our lodging tax ordinance. For the first time ever, we're able to put 10% of our lodging tax to arts, 30% to quality of life, among the other things that we do within marketing and advertising. So I'm hoping that'll be a good sell to the voters to approve this to get better quality of life amenities in arts community.
Well, the other thing is, I think, and I think that's something that has been brought up before, is that we as a city body like today, once it's on the ballot, we cannot advocate it there. But individually, out on the street, we can advocate for it. And I think it would be something that not only us, but all of our boards and commissions should know the reasons why we're doing it.
Yeah.
And they can now, advocate for the changes.
Exactly. Proselytize.
Absolutely.
I'm sorry.
Solicitors.
Yeah, that's right.
And just to remind everyone, we are low comparatively on our lodging tax, so it's not like we're going to be the highest in the region or anything.
Well, I'll give you a good example. I recognized that one time that I went to Denver a while back, and I came back and I looked at the bill.
Yeah.
And it was just the lodging tax for one night was $18.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's what we need. We can advertise the hell out of this place.
We can get that aquatic center after all.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, and that was in Denver. Right?
Yeah, that's right.
It was in Denver. Okay, so I guess we're good with those items. Okay. Last item, community beautification. What do you have?
Oh.
I know, it was an amended agenda item. It was added on.
Beautification.
But we're getting that now.
Yeah.
What was that all about?
That would be me.
Oh, that was, I'm sorry, Councilmember Griego, that was you.
Boy, that was a long time.
Whoa,
You were there, Councilwoman.
And Mayor Council, I did send an email with some photos that Councilmember Griego brought forward.
That's
right.
What else? Say, Karen, go ahead.
Okay, first of all, you guys are really boring.
Thank you very much.
Wow.
At least we're here. Wow. Sorry.
I'm just kidding, I'm just kidding. I just wanted to make sure you guys were awake and listening to me. Well, so if you looked at those pictures, those are just two blocks of North Commercial Street, and I didn't even photograph the block that my business is in. It's south of where my building is at. But I don't know I think we could do a better job with trying to maintain where those trees are at. And if you look at the weed, the weeds are out of control. But I will tell you that as I was taking pictures, there was a city crew walking behind me, cleaning up the weeds. So evidently Mr. Ruger probably has addressed this, but I think we need to have it out in the public. Maybe some of these people that own businesses on the main thoroughfares, do they have any responsibility to maintain that area of the sidewalk, or is that the city's responsibility? And should we have a better, more concerted effort to make sure that those grates are clean?
Snow removal is the responsibility of the individual business. And right, and the trees, I don't know. I think that's always been handled by the city.
I think so too.
Right, it's hard for, if you rent or own a business to go out and trim the tree in front of your business, but so I think that's always been the province of the city. But I don't know that it's necessarily our obligation, but I think we've always treated it that way.
Yeah, I think so.
Well, those trees have been dead. Some of the pictures I showed you, the stumps have been there like that for at least 2 or 3 years. And I know, talking to Karen Wolf, I asked her to see if we could make it a priority of the Urban Forestry Board to get that rectified. But she's concerned because of the electrical that's put in those spaces to light up trees during the holiday, but there's, it's an eyesore and it's a safety issue. And I just asking for council's input as to what you think we all should be doing about it.
No, I think that's definitely something, we go to a lot of expense and effort to put in the really nice plantings and,
Right.
it's, I think we need to look at it holistically, and obviously, people would say, well, it's not a lot of work to fix it, but when you multiply it by the number of them there may be, it becomes a lot of work, but it's like eating an elephant. We just need to start with the first one and move on to the next one. I think it's important to do.
Well, like you say, on top of that, it's a real safety factor too, safety issue.
Right.
It is. I mean, if people don't see that stump, then they walk right in, and that could cause some injury.
Yeah.
I get concerned with even some of the live trees where they've pushed up the grates,
Right.
Those are
Right.
kind of dangerous as well.
We're supposed to have a program where we were supposed to take out those trees and put different ones in. How come that hasn't been followed up on?
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, so the trees downtown are controversial in that some of the business owners are very attached to the trees. So what we are doing, so let me back up. I think there's some short-term things that we need to do to immediately rectify some of the issues you're seeing. No question there. You'll saw that I copied our public works director on the email so he could see the pictures as well, and asked him to help us address these issues. Longer term with trees, we've asked our consultant who's doing our redesign of Main Street from Animas to Commercial to come up with a vegetation plan as well. There's things that drive me nuts. The trees that are just right over here on Animas where the grates are bulging because they've been neglected.
Right.
So all of those things need to take place. And based on today's discussion, I'd like to go ahead and work towards doing an assessment on Commercial as well, and really our entire downtown as vegetation goes. Longer term from that though, we've talked twice at this meeting about creation of a Parks and Rec department. To me, this would fall under that purview, not Public Works. And so when we get to that Parks and Rec department, the direction I think to them will be boulevard, medians, anything like this that's just regular groundskeeping would fall under them. And
You're putting a lot of work on
I
very
know.
few guys. I mean, we have a tremendous amount of parks, and they do a good job, but it's just,
that's how it is.
it's out of hand.
We don't-
I mean, there's no way we can, those guys can handle all that.
Thank you for that.
I
Yeah,
mean,
agreed.
they do a great job. I talked to you a couple times, we talked about Central Park and stuff like that. And to keep up with it is unbelievable, and I mean, we're kind of asking a lot. I mean, there's an option, maybe we can hire some more summer help and stuff like that, and I think that's what we really need to work on is, at one time, we did have a program where we hired some kids during the summer and helped us with the weed eating, and it goes with Commercial Street and all that. I mean, you got Karen and her group, but they just do flowers and stuff. And then you have the other parks trying to cut the grass. We got Kid Carson Park and the whole list of parks you saw in there to take care of.
It's true.
There's just not enough guys
It's true.
and equipment to do it. So maybe that's one of the things we need to look at is seeing if we could find a way to put some summer help and get some guys to work.
Did we ever check in to see if the prison would allow the help that we've had like in the past?
Yeah, we've been in communication with them, and they are ready to start deploying that again. Where we're at is, I think they're lending a couple crews to help Gil with a couple of projects, but Bob has put in a request to the correctional facility saying we'll use whatever we can get. So we're hoping that they'll be able to authorize some folks to come out and help us ASAP. But yeah, that's a partnership we'd really, really like to engage in.
Would we like to recognize Donna?
Sorry.
Okay.
Anything else?
I'd like us at some point down the road, tonight's not the night, but to talk about community beautification on the residential scale as well. I don't know that, I mean, there are definitely people in town who do a great job of the yards Thank you, Karen, for not putting a picture of my yard. But
That's for the next meeting. Karen.
thank you.
Yeah.
But I would love for us to come up with some way to encourage people to take more pride in the place where they live, because the city can only do so much, and then you drive down the side street and there's junk and there's weeds and our code enforcement is also very, very busy, but I just wish it was more of an idea in this town that that's your job. You know, it's your job to present yourself and your home well to the community.
Well, I'm not trying to be a troublemaker. It just grieves me because all those weeds are right there on the same block as Blandina Park.
Yeah.
And that's not a good visual.
Well, here's really the bottom line of this whole thing, is that if we can get the business owners to help, and like you were saying, maybe get some of the residents to, start doing some work on their properties. It boils down to even our tourists, when they come into the community and they see all this stuff that's not in the best of shape, are they going to say, do I want to return? Mm-hmm. Or if it's in good shape, they're just going to say, yeah. And then they will spread the word and say, it's a nice community. So I think there's twofold the reasons why I think we need to try to figure out a way to make this happen. Okay. The one thing I wanted to mention to you, I mentioned a while back, I had a call again from Chris Duran about the school crossing is over here at Holy Trinity Church. Do they have that on their agenda to get that done before school starts?
Yeah, we're targeting that, and so I will follow up with Chris.
Yeah.
I have a request for a future work session.
Go ahead.
I actually wanted to bring this up July 5th, but I thought it'd be poorly placed because we were talking about how great the firework display was, which I think it was. It was phenomenal. However, I think we should take a look as a city council to try and find some way, and I understand the police have a huge job in enforcing it, but I think we should really try and find some way to curtail, especially like the large caliber fireworks that just go on into the night. And I have several ideas. Obviously, they can't be placed here, but I think they're great ideas, and it would be really, I think, something that would benefit our citizens as a whole to do. And if we do it right, it'd also benefit the police department, which I'm sure they would be grateful for.
You're right. As a matter of fact, because last night or night before last, there were people shooting stuff off. And we have one gentleman, as a matter of fact, I sent that information off to Steve, and I think what it is he's a vet, probably has some PTSD issues. And he brings this up every year, and I talked to Steve about that. It's hard to patrol. Yeah, it really is. I feel bad for the man. I wish I could.
That annoys throughout the city. I think that's not his only concern in July 4th. It's people driving loudly through the city. And one idea that I don't think we've really looked at is if indeed we have an ordinance that goes to noise pollution, then we can put up signs in particular areas to say, that this is
some of these
Put that
motorcycles.
on the
This is for another work session, not today.
Yeah, we better.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
we'll put this on next to
Oh, you brought it up.
I just said for a future work session.
Okay, sure.
Okay, time is now 5:42 p.m. and work session, City of Trinidad will now close. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, really, some of these motorcycles.
Yeah,
are louder than the.
Yeah, I was watching the show.